Welcome to The Hard Truth, here with Mr. Justin Konikow, realtor, businessman, friend. We're going to talk about business, real estate. We're going to find out how the market is.
Like when you say how's the market, I naturally think, well, are we talking Toronto condos? Are we talking farmland? Are we talking you're somebody with more money than you know what to do with and you're going to buy buildings cash for the write-offs? Or are you an investor trying to do a joint venture with no money and figure out a 20%?
I had to ask the question because I knew it would set you off.
100%. And I'm the guy that walks into a meeting and throws grenades into a room and I'm like, we're changing softwares, we're doing this, I have an idea. The success trap in my business is massive. And I say this to my team, like if I'm not growing and driving, you probably shouldn't be here. Like if I'm not running at a speed that makes you want to keep up with me, go find somebody that does. When you go to networking events, you can either go there and just drink and have a blast and have fun and leave and you didn't actually accomplish anything, or you can go there knowing that you're in a room of absolute killers and just be naturally curious and spark up conversations.
You have done extraordinary well, and you're not one to brag about it, but you still today invest in mentorship, and you're working with some major people across the country. How is across the world, I should say? What drives you to continue to keep doing that? You're the top of your field here. Why are you keep going? Sitting here today with my good friend Justin Konikow. Justin and I have done oodles of business together, tons of different real estate transactions, built a personal relationship. Justin took me out on Lake Huron on a paddleboard that I was under-equipped to be on.
Almost killed them, actually, right there.
Yeah, literally right out front. Lots of history between Justin and I. Really excited to have you on here today. Want to kind of go back, kind of tell us a bit about yourself.
Sure.
You know how you. This is very the hard truth around real estate, your history, who you are, and around real estate in your business. So.
Yeah, I mean, well, who I am, I'm a guy that was a transplant from Montreal, so I grew up in the big city, was around people who were having way too much fun, ran away from those people, came to London, Ontario, because I had some links there. Started off as a bouncer at Jim Bob Ray's. I didn't realize a place like that existed, but I had to learn to talk because I couldn't fight. And then I worked my way up through the entire company, became the marketing coordinator for the entire company, and then got into real estate. My wife tricked me into getting my license kicking and screaming because I was going to save commissions on investments. And she's an MBA from Ivy, very smart. She's kind of like the Wizard of Oz, does everything in the background, but is a key player at Prime, and she's essentially CEO role. Came up with a model where we're like the anti-real estate agent, or the anti-brokerage, where we don't recruit. We're more of like a high-end consulting service, pricing, marketing, negotiation. People call us typically because of our connections and our reach, but more so our strategy. So I don't even really consider myself a realtor. I used to trade a lot of my time for skill, even more so than money, because I didn't make a lot of money when I was younger, but tried to really build bridges and develop relationships, which then turned into great wealth opportunities. Was involved in some single family stuff, some student rentals over the years. Again, tried to drywall, realized I wasted a lot of time and money learning to do that, so I paid somebody to do it, and then got out of that and got into real estate with my wife. And we've carved out a little niche where we're a very premium service in a very low service industry, if you want to put it that way, right? And I think with technology and innovation coming down the pipeline, we're looking to become more of a media and a tech company than a real estate brokerage. So
amazing. And I think the audience is going to see this more and more in all the different guests we've had on. It's always the walk before we run. I'm bringing in guys like Justin who are he's quite humble. He's a boutique firm, but you guys are massive. You guys are doing a ton of volume. But back in the day, you had a single family rental. You had a student rental. You were drywall patching it. Yeah. Right. So talk to us about your progression over the years of moving up the chains and growing the business. We don't talk as much about the guy with rental properties here. We're talking about the business owners in real estate.
For sure. Well, I don't even own any rental properties. We buy land and lots in a lot of places and communities we see as emerging markets well before they're hot. And my wife had bought lots initially, and then we bought lots here and like under the $100,000 mark that are now worth $600,000 just because of time. And we didn't want somebody calling us to change a toilet necessarily because we were dead focused on the business. But early on, I didn't even put down cash for some of these buildings. I traded my rent or my work, my physical labor, for some sort of co-equity in a building before I actually got into the next step, right? So I think for people, I go back to what I just said, like whatever industry you're in, whether you're an investor or an entrepreneur, you have time, skill, and money. If you have a lot of time, no skill, no money, get around people like Kyle, trade your time for skill, and then you can eventually get money for that. And then you can buy your time back with the money. So I think that's been our journey really, is just always searching for people that are doing things at a high level, trying to be of service, like not a parasite, but actual service, and build a bridge in a relationship. And then when we get to a point where we say we outgrow the relationship, really trying to keep the foundation of the relationship there, not burn that bridge, because I've seen that happen a lot of times where people surpass somebody and think, well, now I'm on my way up, and leave that person behind. The same people you see on the way up are the same people you're going to see on the way down. And through the last, we've been open, 10 years is the anniversary of Prime, but we've been licensed since 2012, so 13 years.
I saw the old picture, by the way. I've seen the new picture a lot, but I saw the old Royal one.
Yeah,
so.
It's funny, like I think about that, I still feel like we're just getting started, right? Like I appreciate people like you who encourage us, but I feel like most of the people I respect wake up every day and they feel like they don't know anything, and they're just trying to get better at their personal craft. And, you know, comfort is the pursuit of death, right? Like if you try and be comfortable every day, you're not going to grow. And I think being around people like yourself and other people that I admire, like mentors of mine, have really forged us into who we are today. But I still feel like we're not even close to where we want to be.
You use the term dead focus. And I think it's quite clear that that's how you operate your business. You're dead focused on growing the business, serving the business. And we're seeing the people who are getting into trouble in today's market have all this stuff.
Yeah.
And you're this way and this way, and every time I talk to you, we're systems and processes. We're dialing in. We're getting things. It's just this.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
So when I say that to you, like I consider us, obviously we do a lot of business together, but like you're a brother in arms, where you've got your family. I respect you immensely, and I see you doing the same thing. So when I vocalize it, or even the guy behind the camera, I don't know him, but I've seen him drive over the last number of years. When I share something publicly, it's an accountability thing for me. Like now I've said it, so like I kind of got to do it. So getting a group of people around you that you truly want to be in life with and sharing it with them makes you realize, like, do you actually track to the things you say? So there's that aspect of it. The second was always trying to pick one or two major things every year that we want to work on, and we pick it in Q4, so October, November, before Christmas. Last year, I knew we needed a good leadership team. I interviewed actually on my podcast one of the biggest brokers in North America, and I was like, what's your key to success? And a lot of the struggles he had were the same struggles I was having. And he said, honestly, you can't direct more than 6 people. That's your max. So you need a 6-person leadership team, spend your entire year finding the right people, empowering them, and don't get over your skis. So my entire year was leadership team. He was so right. And now that they're in place, they're not perfect. I don't expect them to be, but we're slowly working on it. The right people know what their jobs are, and it's clear. I'm not asking them to do a million things. And I'm the guy that walks into a meeting and throws grenades into a room, and I'm like, we're changing softwares, we're doing this, I have an idea. When I realized that, like, now I've got people there that all kind of manage their positions, this year is actually technology. Like, there's some technology pieces with the advent of AI and some other things that are coming that are so incredibly important to the future of what we're doing, that's our major focus. So it comes from A, being in life with people that are similarly minded, B, writing down what you want to accomplish, and then checking in on a regular basis on, am I spending my money and my time towards the things that I said I want to do? Because if I look at my bank account and my calendar, and I just said this on Darren's podcast, and I look at my bank account and calendar, and the money I'm spending is at restaurants and all things that don't track to the things I said I want to do. I'm spending my time constantly putting out fires rather than working on the major things. In 6 months to a year, I'm going to be no further ahead. But if I look at my calendar and my bank account and the money that I'm spending maybe on Claude.ai, testing out different softwares, just trying things, if I do that consistently over time, it's no different than the compound effect of saving 10% of your money and putting it in an investment account, taking another 10%, building an investment account that you buy properties with. Do this consistently over time for a decade. Everybody watching this can do what you and I have done. Everybody watching this can build 15,000 people following you on an account and convert that to real business. But it starts with 10 people a day. but most people don't want to do the boring stuff consistently for long enough to achieve success, right? So it comes from just trying to stay dialed on my calendar.
You said a couple things in there that I know are right from the Dan Martell playbook.
Probably.
Because I know we've talked about how you've been following him. The Dan Martell's Buy Back Your Time, like I literally started hiring the second I read the book. I was like, I gotta do it. He talks about 80% is freaking awesome. So if you hire somebody and they can do 80%,
for sure,
it's freaking awesome. Like so many people are trying to hire somebody and they want, they need 100% replace me. 80% is freaking awesome. That's great. If they can do 80% of it, that's awesome. The other thing you said in there is the grenades.
That's from his book.
That's from his book, 100%. Yeah. And I have had to be, like, that is the biggest check I've had to put into my business. I throw them all the time. Yeah. So I've actually had to make my team aware of what that means and tell me. Yeah. Kyle, you're throwing a grenade here. Yeah. And with the grenade, it basically, as a business owner, you're constantly tweaking and changing, and there's a process that's not quite perfect, and it doesn't need to be fully reinvented, and you're just like, grenade, like blow the whole thing up.
Yeah, let's try this.
I've had to actually make my team aware, where they're like, Kyle, I see what you're saying, but you're throwing a grenade right now, and we can't change this whole thing.
For sure.
So, investing in, I'll tie that into maybe, you have done extraordinarily well, and you're not one to brag about it, but you still today invest in mentorship, and you're working with some major people across the country. How is across the world, I should say? What drives you to continue to keep doing that? Why you're the top of your field here? Why you keep going? Like,
a black belt is a white belt that never gave up, right? And like, I'll use jiu-jitsu as an example. You can be a black belt and you're still always going to go to the gym and learn something from somebody else who did it differently, or is in a different environment, or is 140 pounds or 250 pounds. And I think I look at my craft like a martial art, right? And I truly do think that even if I think I know everything, guess what? The market's going to shift. They're going to hold rates. We're going to have political races. The crazy things are going to happen, which short of the Independence Day UFO coming, I think everything else has happened in the last 5 years. And I think the mentorship piece, like, it initially actually started for me just picking up my phone. I mentioned earlier, like, just doing the thing gives you success, right? Agents don't pick up their phones. One day I picked up a phone and a guy named Jazz Takar was on the other line. He was like, hey, Scott McGillivray wants you to come work for him. I'm like, this is a scam for sure. And I was like, no, he doesn't. Called my wife and she's like, yeah, it's probably a good idea. Go down and see what they're doing. And this was Keyspire back in the day, actually, where we met initially.
Yeah.
So I said yes to an opportunity. I picked up my phone. I just showed up. I had no idea what I was doing initially. I walked up to Scott and I'm like, I'm going to build out an entire division to service your membership. And Scott was like, who's this crazy person? I had no idea who I was. Next year I showed up and I brought another person with me. I was a little bit more organized. Next year I showed up, my booth was a little bit better. Next year I showed up and I realized driving people around for 2 hours every time they came to London wasn't the best idea. And then I should work on qualification. And I constantly, like, then Scott noticed me. Because then after about three or 4 years, we started developing a personal relationship. Then he wanted to send me looking for deals for him, and we actually started becoming friends. And there was an innate curiosity that he had, I think more so that, like, I just come to him and ask him a complex problem, leave, and then come back like 8 months later and be like, okay, I did it, and this is what happened. And he was just more a tinker. He's like, oh, that's interesting. Well, this is what I would do. Serhant was the same thing. I got connected through Serhant, through a friend of mine. I went down on a whim to shoot a podcast. I thought it was the photo op that was going to get me the relationship. I didn't even air that podcast. He gave me every secret, his split plans, everything, how to do new dev. And I jumped in the car with my wife and I'm like, hey, I'm going to offer him 10 grand for that meeting once a year. Are you okay with that? And she's like, sure, like, bet on yourself, right? Even if he ghosts you, you'll make it work. So I cold emailed him and he's like, no, just come back anytime. He's like, come back next year and just come to Soho. I don't do that, is what he said. He clearly does it now. Showed up next year and same thing as Scott. I gave him a complex problem. He gave me what he would do. I brought it back to my market. And I'm so different than he is, but like, I still implemented and executed, and I'm like, hey, new set of problems. What I notice with mentors and people like I'm mentioning in our community that will be your drivers, it's almost like we're a little bit crazy and we like toying with complex problems and solving things because other people run from those problems. Where I noticed I really earned the mentorships was the consistent action over time, where Ryan didn't remember my name for like 4 years. But I just kept showing up, new set of problems, and I honored the relationship. I didn't bug him unless there was a serious kind of thing that I needed. And now, like, their fingerprints are all over Prime. I have direct access to his entire team, even his people that nobody knows who they're involved. They have huge impact on how we're doing things on the digital strategy side, because we just kept showing up, and the integrity of, I don't need anything from him, he doesn't need anything from me, but the relationship, like, I gave them all my SOPs in that first meeting. I left the meeting and I sent all of my standard operating procedures to his team because they didn't have action plans in their CRM back in like 2018. And it was always that synergy. It's the same thing with you. Like, I may think of an idea that I know somebody gave me that's not directly related to my business, but may help you. And I may just drop that on you one day when we're talking, or for you on YouTube, a connection I have that maybe shows me something, that an angle that maybe you didn't realize, or vice versa. Energy creates energy. And when you get into proximity with people like that, the biggest return on investment I've ever had on the businesses, investments I've made, or anything has been investing in those relationships. And when there comes a time to reinvest in those relationships, Scott launches the Trusted Agent program, Ryan launches Sell It, they called me and they're like, hey, we already have the relationship, but like, we kind of may want to make you the guy. This is what the program looks like. Sure, I'm glad to support you. People that don't know me look at that and think he just paid for the photo op, doesn't realize there's an actual relationship behind it. No factor, right? Like, for me, I reinvest in the relationships that I find are doing good in the community, and it makes me, by proximity, want to do the same with my organization, and also run at the same speed as them, because I see like their scale of what they're doing is beyond anything I'm doing. But it can definitely impact how I show up for my team and the energy that I bring back to my team, for sure.
You said earn mentorship there, and I think, you know, a lot of us in the real estate communities understand that you got to pay to play. Often you got to pay to get into a room. But you know, I go back to a guy named Ray, who I still consider my mentor, and I paid him, but I earned his mentorship. He never asked me for another check, and he'll still pick up my phone call anytime I ever call for him, because I earned his mentorship, and we connected at a deeper level. And
how many people were in his coaching program? A lot, probably, right?
100 plus for sure, if not more.
How many people put up their hand and ask questions, do you think?
Less than 10%.
How many people do you think showed up consistently and implemented the things that he taught them?
Less than 10%.
Less than 5.
I was going to actually say less than 5.
There's 15,000 people globally in the Serhant Sell It program, coaching program. There's even less on the Pro program. I'm an ambassador, which is a different thing altogether. I was on a call with him yesterday, actually at 3 o'clock. I was on a call with him. I pay for the program for my entire team. And I always scroll through just to see who's actually there. There's 30 people on my team. There was 3 of them there. And I've got killers on my team. And I'll go back to the meeting and say, like, I own the company and I'm still thirsty to learn. So like, the only difference between me and you as to why I'm getting all the listings and distributing them to the team and you're not, is I'm in training. I'm on the mats. People have this entitlement that the work's just gonna come to them. If you don't go to work, you're not gonna get paid, right? And I think, like yourself, that was such a good point, that like, I've paid to get into other rooms to make relationships with YouTubers and people that I'm kind of going to that space now a little bit.
Yep.
And I've earned relationships with Christo, Sean Cannell, Benji Travis, like these people that are monsters just by showing up. Clubhouse is where it actually started, where everybody kind of mocked Clubhouse. And I'm like, if you just show up consistently, people that are you just at a much higher level will recognize that. And the one thing that I've really noticed is a signal of a successful person is they will give freely until you show them that you have ethics that are counter to theirs, and then you won't get any more access.
100%. And if he says anything technology, it's going to happen, because you talked about TikTok before anyone was talking about TikTok. Everything, the Clubhouse, I had no idea you were on that like 2 years ago. Now I'm hearing other people talk about it. So if he mentions any tech...
Clubhouse is dead, just so everybody knows.
Okay.
Although it isn't, because I was in a room this morning with 80 agents. One was the #1 guy in Silicon Valley, Andy C. He's a monster, Glenda Baker in Atlanta. And we have a really good little mastermind of people talking about ideas on how to help our clients. So it's just tools. I feel like too many people are a slave to the tool, TikTok, AI, whatever, versus learning to actually use the tool like YouTube or anything else, right? That's the difference.
This is a way, we tend to be more real estate investing, but I want to maybe pivot the conversation a little bit to like realtor, mortgage agent.
Sure.
One thing you said there is, you know, you wondering why you get all the listings to distribute to the team. And I still see the same thing in my mortgage business. I still go to more networking events than any other agent on my team.
You probably pick up your phone more too.
For sure I do. And I go to those things, and I'm still pulling out new business, and they're like, where do you get all these people from? I'm in the front. I'm right there. I'm on social media. I'm going to those events. I'm still doing the things that I learned as a 22-year-old financial advisor. When I walk into a room, I'm still, I'm Kyle. I'm in the money business. I'm in the finance business. I'm in the real estate business. And it's like it's a muscle that I can't turn off. Yeah. So
well, also intention, right? Because we went down. I spoke at Sell It last year in New York City. Put the invite out to my entire team, and I was curious to see who was going to go, because you have to pay the ticket and go to New York City, this giant sales conference. 2 of my agents put their hand up and booked their tickets that day. Didn't tell anybody I was speaking at the event. We ended up comping their trip. We took care of them when we went down to the event, and I explained to them on the plane ride there, just like Keyspire. When I do Keyspire, I'm intentional. I'm not going time away from my family just to go hobnob with a bunch of agents and get drunk. A, I don't drink, but B, I'm going there with an intention of serving the membership and executing at an ultra high level. And that's why it's so funny you say that, because when you go to networking events, you can either go there and just drink and have a blast and have fun and leave, and you didn't actually accomplish anything, or you can go there knowing that you're in a room of absolute killers and just be naturally curious and spark up conversations. And when we went to Sell It, I was next to a billionaire, and I was like, hey, I'm Justin, just introduced myself to him, told me who he was. He told me, he's like, look around this room, and there was a bunch of agents getting loaded. He's like, they're going to make some terrible decisions tonight. They're just here to have fun. And he's like, look at Ryan. And I looked at Ryan as he was saying this, and he's like, the reason I hire him, turned out it was one of his actual clients. He's like, the reason I hire him is that. And you could see Ryan was intent on every conversation that he was having. He was looking in people's eyes. He was asking questions more than he was talking. It wasn't the celebrity factor that everybody thinks he has. It was exactly what you said. And he walked away, and then one of Ryan's sales guys was like, you know who that was? Told me. I was like, oh my gosh. And what was so interesting was that billionaire, Ryan, you, so many people I've met, the only difference between successful and unsuccessful people is unsuccessful people spend their time blaming other people for the success they don't have. Successful people take action and are intentional at creating success. It's the only difference.
So true. It's the truth. I'm going to ask your favorite question. How's the market? Justin.
It's my favorite grocery question.
So for anyone who doesn't know, Justin, you're based out of the
Southwestern Ontario. So head office is the London Greater area. We basically go Kitchener to Sarnia now, Lake Erie to Lake Huron. What's super unique about our squad is we're a Navy SEAL team, and we cover all asset classes. Most brokerages cover one asset classes. They're investor focused, commercial or res. We do residential, commercial, agriculture, land development, recreational properties, luxury, and we obviously... And
you do it all well. There's lots of places that have that on their list.
Yeah.
Right?
When I say that, so it is a Navy SEAL team. So I have a lead commander in each division who's a specialist. So Ryan McLean on my team is a grass-fed beef farmer, grew up as an actual cowboy, has cattle right now, and he'll give you beef every fall if you want to buy it. Holly Bush Farms, shout out. He's also a cash crop advisor, and he's been in ag forever. So I hired him strategically because he knows more than I do. I know more about media and real estate negotiation and strategy. So think if you're a farmer and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm getting an actual farm specific agent and the power of Prime, where do I sign? On the commercial side, same thing, and market territory coverage as well. So there's markets I know better than anywhere else, and there's other markets where St. Thomas, Nathan knows it better than me. Betty knows Dutton better than I do. I can go down the list. John Baker knows Exeter better than I do. And I strategically try and bring on partners, not agents that work for me, but partners to cover the squad. So from a territory perspective, when you say how's the market, there's primary markets, secondary markets, and tertiary markets. Primary markets like your Kitcheners and your Londons, I'd say, are better than your GTAs and your BCs, because GTA and BC, which all the headlines are talking about, are terrible because it's all pre-construction. Our markets are thriving. Everything under 1.5 is selling great if it's priced well. The luxury market is struggling, but there's great deals at 2.25 million that are probably worth 2.5. The investor market's coming back faster than I expected. We've been putting these buildings up for sale. We have 4 apartment buildings. 2 we put off market on Monday, and we had a ton of interest, and I think we have an offer coming in on 2 of them today. right? We'll have a conversation later.
Okay. Off camera.
two other ones are being launched on Friday, and people are chomping at the bit for them too. Now, you have three different types of buyers for those. You have ones that are looking for blood in the water and want a massive discount. You have others that'll pay market, and you have others that will pay above market because they're not playing by the same rules as these first two investors because they're buying it all cash. They're not financing it at all, right? So, like when you say how's the market, I naturally think, well, are we talking Toronto condos? Are we talking farmland? Are we talking you're somebody with more money than you know what to do with and you're going to buy buildings cash for the write-offs? Or are you an investor trying to do a joint venture with no money and figure out a 20%?
I had to ask the question because I knew it would set you off.
100%.
So
right?
how in Southwestern Ontario, for more the ma and pa to beginner institutional level, like starting to be business, investor community, from 2s to 50, small multis to mid-sized multis, that, you know, that previous, that Keyspire bread and butter, like that investor world in Southwestern Ontario. And the one, how is the data say, and how is the buyer and seller sentiment?
It was really quiet over the last year. So like the multifamilies, the duplexes, the triplexes, the fourplexes were not really selling. The buildings were virtually unfinanceable. The banks didn't want to touch them. And typically they wanted so much money for them, it just didn't make sense. And you have to do creative financing on it. Now,
the math wasn't mathing.
The math wasn't mathing, 100%. And I also think like we went through that stint where there was a lot of pushback from the landlord-tenant board side of things. People were dragging out, you know, the N11s and like just going to court, and people were terrified. They're like, I just don't want to deal with that problem. So it actually just stopped for a while, and a lot of it was just investor education, keeping people up to speed as to what's happening. And there's three major markets: residential, say investment, and commercial. So what I like looking at is the focused diversification we have gives us the ability to see what's happening in one market that will affect the next, that will affect the next. What I mean by that is the commercial market never stopped. So institutional investments started coming to Elgin County. So I did a whole bunch of investor product in St. Thomas, buildings nobody would touch with a 10-foot pole, unfinanceable buildings that are being renovated into incredible properties now because Volkswagen and Amazon are spending so much money in the area that people were super hyped for it. Well, Volkswagen's now pulling back a little bit and people are a little more cautious. All of a sudden, the economics in the London market, where we're seeing Sarnia, were such that the prices were getting so low that people wanted to sell and they weren't selling. They kept dropping and dropping and dropping. Duplexes and fourplexes were now in the market where I'm like, that actually makes sense. I can get a decent cap rate on that and I can actually cash flow, which people would have killed for in 2017 to 2022. So like all of a sudden we see like boots on the ground, deals start popping off, and people that I had triplexes and fourplexes listed for were revisiting, hey, if you're still a seller, I actually think that we can sell in this range of pricing. Apartment buildings are a little bit of a different beast, where we actually are doing some where it's selling at market value if there's value add. I do find you have to do a lot to extrapolate the opportunity before you launch it. So you really have to showcase to people, here's the upside of the building, here's what's happening in the community, and find the investors that are seeing future value today. You do have to work 15 times harder to find those people. Or the other conversation is, and I had a conversation with a client yesterday, or you just keep the buildings. Like, let's establish what that baseline number is, where it's going to make more sense for you to keep the buildings for the cash flow for the next 5 to 10 years, because I truly believe Southwestern Ontario is going to be a great market in the next 5 to 10 years. And if you don't achieve what you want, it's okay. I'm earning your business for when you sell it down the line, right? I've seen in the new construction in the res market was always steady. From the flipping side of things, people were actually consistently buying homes, renovating them, and getting into nice communities that you couldn't get into before. So London, we would have seen that quite a bit, where, you know, your Oakridge, your Westmounts, Gloucester, Lansdowne, like even some larger renovation prices. It was a desirable street and it was priced well and you did your math on the project, you were going to crush. If you overpriced, you weren't going to sell and you'd end up in a reduction cycle. Strategically, I think if you're a seller, you have to list to sell in 3 months. Once you're on the market for 6 months or plus, then it's a matter of, well, we're going to wait for the market to come to us. We're okay with that. When we get our number, we get our number, and that's fine. I don't think to a certain degree that you'll stigmatize, because there's a lot of listings that have been on the market for long days on market. I do think you got to be strategic about when to take it off, when to put it on. Flipping back to the investor buyer side, on the opportunity side, we're always going into expired listings, calling agents that had those listings, searching for distressed sellers or our properties, still available for sale and revisiting them. And I think you really have to find the deals. But how is that any different than 2020 to 2022 when it was ultra competitive? You still had to create the opportunity. It's just we're on the other side of the spectrum.
We talk about, not getting the full value for your investment. And I say this with a asterisk, assuming you're in a strong financial position, you're not over leveraged, you're in a good position to buy. You got to be dollar cost averaging right now. If you had a property at the peak that was a lot higher and it's down, that means other properties are down too. 100%. Buy back in. Yeah. It's funny when you get into the human psychology. If somebody say, my property's down, I'm waiting for it to go back up again before I buy. Well, if the strategy is we're waiting for our property to go back up, that means other ones are down. Why aren't we getting more? And if our theory is right, multiple properties are going back up. Simon Gianni, who obviously you know well, used to say this all the time. Canadians are conservative, chicken, and cheap. And I believe it to be so true. Yep. We're so mounted in our certain beliefs that we're scared. We literally wait until prices are. I'm waiting for prices to go up. Yeah. I'm waiting for. That's like, who do you know who walks into a store and says there's a sale on right now? Let me know when the prices are going up. But when it comes to real estate, that's what everybody says. Let's wait for once the prices go up, then we'll get back in the market.
You have to be a market maker, right? And sitting in this property, I remember when we did this deal. I think of the other two we did before this one, so 16 and 18 Pine, and when you bought that, you were looking around a corner at what was happening in Grand Bend, and at the time the agent's like, I can't believe that it sold for that price point because nothing had sold in this area for that price point until it sold. Now the comp is set, guess what? The prices are going to go up based on that comparable on the next sale. And like, I'll take it to one of our larger investments we did last year, and you actually spoke at the mastermind that we hosted there. Mm-hmm. We had it on the market for, I think, $2.25 million. It's probably worth $2.5 in a good market. We sold it for $2 million.
It sold?
Yeah, it sold.
Oh, congrats.
We sold it for $2 million. We made our money doing the land severance on it when we purchased it.
Yeah.
We could have been those sellers and said, I'm going to wait for the market to make an extra $250 or $500, but instead we took our capital out and we put our money back to work because I know the margins on my business are about 40% on every dollar, or 30 to 40, depending on the deal, on my reinvestment in the real estate side of things. So although I could wait for the market to increase, if I don't redeploy that capital somewhere else, like there's a sunk cost fallacy where people think because I could have got this number on this date, I need to wait for that number. And man, it happens over and over. There was a farmer I consulted with, and he thought he can get $2 million for his land. I got him an offer of $3 without even batting an eye. I think I can get him $4, and his wife wants $6. And I'm like, sure, like you can wait 5 to 10 years to get that, but let's just say you took $2 million and you put it in a stable investment at 7 to 10%. And you waited 5 years. Let's start doing the math on this. And we started really looking at the numbers. And she's like, oh, and I'm like, not only that, like, you don't want to be here because of like your age and the time that it's going to take. So what does 5 years look like living in this house, making an extra, I think it ended up being a couple $100,000, right? I'm like, versus being able to take your capital, get out, go live exactly where you want to live at your age in life and have that money to reinvest somewhere else, right? And I think you can't look at transactions in a silo. You should be able to zoom out at your larger goals and see how your investments fit into it. And I think that'll change your perspective.
Nobody asks the questions. When I hear people all the time, well, I don't want that. Why? Why? The Toyota guy, the 7 whys. Why? I want 6. Well, I want 6 too. Like we all want 6, but why? And why? If we go back and we start, what could you do with that money? What does that look like today? Have we run a calculation on the compounding interest of investing that versus waiting for this asset to carry?
And you don't even know like how long it could take. Like I thought the markets would have been back a year ago, but political craziness, banking craziness. I mean, like I said, I never tell people I have a crystal ball, and I've never told my investors invest on passive appreciation. Our deals have to pencil when we write them, or I don't do them. Because I don't want to be holding the bag in 5 years when they aren't in a position where they can carry the asset. And I think when you say those things, like it really makes me step back and think of starting with strategy, and I think making sure that you really understand why you're doing what you're doing. Because I'll sit down with the client and they'll say, I want this for my property. And I'm like, well, I want a 40-foot boat. Like, I don't know if that's going to happen. Like, we're going to come up with a strategy. We're going to see how the market reacts. And I'd love to promise it to you, but we won't know until we go out there as to who is out there. And we don't know what's going to happen in a week, let alone a month.
There
right?
could be a bad tweet. We don't know.
Yeah. And I do think the people, again, going back to successful and unsuccessful people, I said this to Scott once, successful people act in spite of fear, unsuccessful people act because of fear, successful people act in spite of it. They both have the exact same data and the exact same thing. It's just, are you going to sit in that fear and let it make the decisions for you? Or are you going to look at what you can actually control? And sometimes, and we've had these conversations, it's slashing expenses and looking at your staff and being like, what am I paying you for? Like the whole Elon thing, like, what do you do here? Like, you kind of got to do that internally with yourself and then externally with the team that's around you. And then it's not a bad thing to do on a regular basis. Learn to do more with less, get super lean. And then when I think markets are good, this version of Prime would mollywop 2020 Prime. If I was going up against myself in the peak, Prime 1.0 wouldn't stand a chance. But it's because we've gone through a very painful time and we didn't run away from the fear, right?
What would future Justin say? We had a guy, James was on earlier, and he said whenever he's got a problem, he always asks himself, how would future James look at this problem? Because right now it's a problem, but your future self has dealt with it 100 times, and it's super easy. So, no, that's awesome. So, what is I'll ask it in two parts. For a new investor, you've hundreds, if not thousands, of new investors. So a new investor getting into the real estate market, what is the hard truth? What do they need to understand right now? They call Prime, came out of a workshop, I'm excited, I'm ready to go, I've never invested in real estate. What is, we want them to invest, but what is the hard truth they need to know?
There's no easy button and you have to do the work, right? Like, nobody's going to do it for you. It's the same with like buying, relationships or showing up in different places. Like, you could go to Ray's thing and not lift a finger and blame the program. Like, people call me about Serhant. I've never taken a referral dime from anybody. They ask me for affiliates, everything. I'm like, no, I'll be an ambassador because it actually works. And when people call me, I'm like, guess what? The photo op's not going to help you, and Ryan's not going to answer your call. You may earn that one day. But I said, if you're buying access to Ryan, his hourly fee, he told me, was $175,000 an hour. So if he gives you his time, I think speaking fee was $75, it's probably $150 now. So I was like, if you think that's what you're buying, you're not getting it. But I can tell you the ecosystem will work. You'll actually get access to people like me that normally I wouldn't give. My fee's not $175, but it's not small. For me to take an hour of my time to help you maybe strategize on building your team and business, I wouldn't do that for anybody else, but because you're in the ecosystem, I probably will take more calls than I actually should. But at the end of the day, if you're a brand new investor and you buy into a program and you pay $100,000 for coaching, if you expect them to do the work for you, you expect them to run the numbers for you, you expect them to do the research on the partners, and even signing a contract, like, you're a full-blown human being. You need to take responsibility to read the contracts that you're signing.
Full-blown human being. I love that.
Like, even on the rental side, and again, I don't want to go down a wormhole, but like, absolving tenants of responsibilities of being a full-blown human being and understanding that they are responsible human beings is something we need to kind of get back to, because you're robbing them from learning the skills that are going to make them successful human beings. By nerfing the world and putting all of these failed safes in place, you're not giving them the opportunity to learn. So the hard truth for an investor is you need to learn to understand what asset class you actually want to specialize. You want to get around smart people that are actually in that asset class, and understand that you're not an influencer, and that you kind of understand your pecking order and earn that opportunity. You need to really understand contracts and the things that you're signing and get a good team around you of people. And obviously I'm a real estate agent. Like, I use real estate agents when I'm buying in other markets because I want to understand rules around water ownership and laws and things that I don't know. And I refer out to markets that I don't work. I'm killer lawyer, killer accountant. And then ultimately understand that you have to make your own success, that nobody owes you a thing. If you're buying into an ecosystem, you feel like I don't know, if I paid Ray $1 million, I don't own Ray. And I think that's where a lot of people in these communities get it wrong, is they blame the system when if they were truly accountable. Show me your bank account, show me your calendar. What work did you do to achieve success? Oh, nothing? It probably wasn't the program.
I'm going to ask another question because I love your answer better, but I thought this is what you were going to say. Does the cash flow from 10 duplexes at $500 a month equal $5,000 and it'll mean you can quit your job?
No, absolutely not. You'll never get wealthy from transactions. You'll get wealthy from the relationships you make through transactions. You will make giant equity leaps through transactions. Cash flow will help you survive bad markets and will definitely help. But your equity jumps is what's going to make the major difference. Your equity jumps from discovering the opportunity, repositioning an asset. I'm working on some land right now that's NE1 that I want to turn into potential agricultural land or single family residence. But I have to create that opportunity. I'm taking leveraged risk where, worst case scenario, I own a forest and I have wood and I can play in the forest, right? But I also understand the leverage risk that if I do that, that land value is going to hold value to a certain type of person for the next 10 or 15 years. And I think you really have to understand how other people have found success in real estate is by really the buy and hold method for a long enough period of time to achieve success. The cash flow piece, the amount of investors that have come to us saying, I just want to quit my job and I want real estate to be the vehicle to do that. I tell them cash flow doesn't exist in the markets you want to buy it. If you want to find that cash flow, you're either going to find a very high vacancy rate and probably some high delinquency payment type tenants, really high cash flow, very risky asset typically, or go to a market where you're probably not going to see the same equity jumps from an appreciation standpoint like out east, right? But then out east started taking off and all of a sudden the cash flow started dropping and the passive appreciation started going up. But the people that got in there early that really understood it, they benefited from it. You benefited from it here. Now
here's what I'll say. What I've noticed, and now I still feel like a young guy, but it's now my over decade of experience. Every high cash flow market that people have started going to has started to get appreciation because the economics work. The numbers work, which means capital's flooding there, and they get appreciation to a point. There's some caps there. It gets to a point where people are like, it's
but then it doesn't cash flow anymore, right? Because they all invest there. The appreciation happens, and then that's the game. Right? Like if you go back 100 years, we studied this, like people were always complaining there's no way these prices make sense. Like, well, in Byron, you used to be able to buy a house for 50 grand. I bet you when it went from 50 to 100, the guy was like, there's no way this is going to last. Then it went to 200, then it went to 400, then it went to 800, then it went to 1.2, and then right back down to 900. Like in the long run, I think understanding first principles from investing really makes sense. Start with compound interest, start with understanding how to actually run a household budget and save money. Figure out how to put your little soldiers to work, and then get a lot of knowledge in a very specific asset class. And the most successful people I've ever seen, and I like taking my own medicine, I'm like the eternal hobbyist. I have more hobbies in my life than you can count, but I've slowly started getting rid of them. And even on the business side, I'm turning down opportunities right now that are really big opportunities. Even on like the content side, you're probably seeing 60% less life coaching, business entrepreneurship content from me because I'm not a coach. I don't recruit. That's not my model. Everything's real estate focused. I want to be known as the most strategic real estate agent in the game and a real estate media and tech company. So all of my resources are going into there from studying and having leverage and knowledge. If you're an investor and you want to do storage, go deep into storage. If you want to do apartment buildings, go deep into apartment buildings. Do what he said. Go to networking events, join Facebook groups. Like, be careful of what you consume, but consume a lot and study it. And the more you study something, the more you're gonna have leverage. And what Kyle said earlier is very true. Most people won't even show up to the Zoom calls on a regular basis, much less study. And like, you will be at the top of your field if you're willing to put in the effort.
Last one, hard truth for the person who's maybe a little bit farther along but kind of stuck. So they got 5 properties, they're doing okay, but they're stuck. What do they need to know to get to break through?
You're probably too comfortable, and you need to find somebody that's going to challenge you, right? You're not around people that you aspire or admire. And I think the success trap in my business is massive. Like, and I say this to my team, like if I'm not growing and driving, you probably shouldn't be here. Like if I'm not running at a speed that makes you want to keep up with me, go find somebody that does.
As the owner, as a visionary, you have to have a vision big enough for everyone else's dreams and goals.
Dan says that all the time. And I think,
swear the guy talks to me on his Instagram reels. I swear he's just sending Kyle what I need to hear that day.
I also think like I went through a lot of tough periods in my life. And even when I found some success, I find that like I was driving so hard on the works, I was burning myself out on a regular basis. And I was wondering why. And typically what I noticed, I think I talked to my pastor about this and a few other people, and I started taking bits and pieces from other mentors, and I came up with my own formula. We work jobs we hate to buy stuff we don't want to trust people we don't like. And then we go home and our families are upset because they're not getting the time that they should be getting from us. We feel like, well, I have to do that because I don't want you to starve and I got to pay the bills. And there's this constant push and pull. It's really simple in my life now. It's faith, family, fitness, fun, finances. Heart's right with God. I'm in a better place to serve my wife and daughter. If my wife and daughter are happy, I can work out and I'm not distracted. Hey, Justin, what are you doing? And if I'm mentally and physically fit, then I can go out and do fun things, go paddleboarding with my favorite clients and almost kill them, go fly fishing, whatever, right? Like I do the things I like to do. I love photography. I'm a hobbyist. I do those 4 things. There's not that much time to do the actual work. But when I work pretty damn hard and I'm happy. And people always think maybe they think I'm on drugs or happy-go-lucky. It's just because like I'm really focused on those first 4 things. So when I work, right? And I think most people do it the opposite way. They chase the work and then they wonder why they're frustrated. Well, it's because you're not doing the things that you want to do and your relationships aren't thriving because you're spending all your time working. So I think flipping the stack is super, super critical in order to always be growing. And when you get comfortable, I think you need to audit those 4 things. And I think you really need to think about like, how are you performing? 1 out of 10, 7 is not an option because then you'll get a real answer. If it's like a 6 or a 5, okay, what can you do to make it an 8? If it's a 1 or 2, maybe reevaluate, is that something you even want to do? And I do that with clients. You're a 10. You and Chelsea, not just because of the size and the amount of business we've done, it's fun. You're honest with me. I can be honest with you. You know I'm not blowing smoke to just earn the transaction. I have clients that have been 5 and 6s that have turned into 8 to 10s because I sucked at communication with them or I wasn't honest with them. And I was able to get them to an 8 to 10. I have other clients that were 3 or 4s that didn't value what I do. They want the cheapest agent. They want me to do unethical things. I'm like, that's not me. There's other agents for you, and they're out of my life now. And I think you got to think about all aspects of your life, faith, family, fitness, fun, finances, and constantly be auditing those things and challenging yourself. I ate like crap last night. Challenging myself to not binge eat right now and stay focused on diet, right? And I think that's the game, is if you're comfortable, you probably need to get uncomfortable.
If that just spoke to me a lot too. If the people who are stuck at that 5, it's the classic. You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. You got to challenge yourself. You got to get into a different room. Your team. If you're the team that got you to 5 properties, might not be the same team that's going to get you to 10 or 20 properties. So you might need to change that team. So. Amazing. This is just how Justin and I talk to each other. This is just like our normal conversation. So
I see him walking his dog, and he's like, "This is going to be a 45-minute conversation."
Thank you so much for coming on. Genuinely appreciate it. We'll make sure your contact information if you're buying, selling, trading in the London, Greater Southwestern Ontario.
The LGA. I coined it, trademark.
If you ask me for a realtor, you get Justin's direct number. You may get the pleasure of a voice-to-text message from Justin someday. If you need help translating that, I'm a pro now.
Justinese. It's a real thing.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Justin.
Yeah, my pleasure.